Okay. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Okay. So. Mm-hmm. Okay. Have a good time. Goodbye. Um. Um. Hey, can everyone hear me okay? I just want to make sure that things are like working. I think okay, mic's on and yeah. So I uh okay. I have my lesson plan for you guys. Just a heads up, this is going to be kind of a really bare basics like pixel art process like stream. Um Starting with some like pretty rudimentary like um things. So apologies if um, any of this information is like really obvious or anything like that. I just feel like it's really important to kind of cover um, all of the rudiments before we move on to like more advanced stuff. So I'm pretty excited about this series. I want to get to a point where I'm able to like talk about more things in depth. And I've been talking with a couple of other artists, some other content creators that I've been like working with, and they'll be visiting some of these streams. Hey, yeah, they'll be visiting some of these streams too, which is going to be really cool. But for now, let's start with the basics. So, for the majority of this stream, I'll just be working with four color palettes. Oh, hey. Oh, you managed to make it. Welcome. um, oh, also, side note, there's a bit of a delay between, right, I'm sure you guys have streamed before. There's going to be a bit of a delay between, like, what I'm recording and what's actually, like, in the chat. So, if I respond pretty late to something, just apologies in advance. Okay, right. I'll be working with a four color palettes for the majority of the stream. This way, I can just kind of like focus on the really like core basics of like pixel art. I feel like bringing in like really complex palettes might be really confusing for people that are first starting out. So I just really want to keep it simple. I'll be sharing all of these like palettes for people to like mess with and like tweak as much as they want onto the Google Drive folder. So keep an eye out for that. Um, First, I just wanted to like go over like um, a basic line segment things. So the easiest lines to read are going to be your horizontal and vertical lines, as well as diagonal lines that are at a 45-degree angle. So basically, like, pixel lines that have like a 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. Um, any other lines? they read just like fine at a distance, but you can tell that it starts to get kind of jaggy. Whoops, you can tell that it starts to get a little bit jaggy, and that's when you want to use anti-aliasing in order to like smooth out those jags and make it look really um, um, smooth. Sorry, that was so redundant. Okay, for those of you guys who don't know, anti-aliasing is a technique that is used to, you know, smoothen out hard edges, um, to make the line read a lot better. Um, oh yeah, another thing that I wanted to point out. Um, so even though, you know, both of these lines, if you compare the horizontal vertical lines to like how well the diagonal lines read, um, your horizontal and vertical lines are always going to appear thicker than your diagonal lines, right? And your 45-degree diagonals are always going to read like at the thinnest. Any angle in between is going to be like, you know, in between those, I guess, those illusions of like thickness. So that's also important to keep in mind when you're anti-aliasing. There are some decisions you have to make, where you have to like, you know, darken um, some of your diagonals just so the line weight looks consistent to your horizontals and verticals. Um, you know, another thing to keep in mind, when you're also another thing I'm pretty excited about, like, look, I have my like checklist thing so I can like, oh hey, thanks for stopping by. Oh right, sorry, I have my like checklist so we can like go like check off things as we like, oh look, we covered line segments, yeah. Learning. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. I'm still like figuring things out during stream, so if there's anything that I need that I should adjust, like please feel free to let me know in the comments. I really appreciate all of your help. Whoops. I think I did that wrong. Yeah. Okay, right. So starting with curves. You want talking in order, the best curves always follow like a pattern. Um, so you never want to have like curves that suddenly change increment, line increments or pixel increments, um, because it just reads jaggy from a distance, right? Just to compare like this curve that I just drew, you want to decrease and increase in consistent increments. So instead of like, I don't know, like this 5 to 1 1 1 5 curve that I have, it's a lot, it'll look a lot better if I just do like a 3 to 2 to 1 to 1 to, whoops, 2 to 3. And that curve just reads a lot better. So that's something to keep in mind. So those are like some general rules that you want to stick to when you're making line art. But there are, as with everything, there are like total exceptions to the rule, right? Like there are going to be times where you have like a very specific curve that you can't like have like nice increments or else it just doesn't capture the form well. That's when you want to use anti-aliasing. So and there are different like when you decide to go in and kind of like smooth everything out, there are like certain decisions you have to make. There are multiple ways to like AA the same object, and I'll be showing that. So here's our original like circle, and here are I'll be showing you two ways to like AA this, and yeah. Uh, so I'll be pulling from one of our four color palettes. So exciting. So, for example, we can start either AAing on the outside of line segments or on the inside. I'm going to be, for the sake of this example, I'll just be AAing on the inside of like the curve, and we'll see how that ends up looking. And you use two colors, like I use two colors. You don't like have to. I usually think that two colors ends up looking like the best, but um, so here's our first circle, and you can tell it. There are like certain areas where it still kind of reads a little bit weird and jaggy, but it does appear like a lot smoother. So now let's try AAing on the outside of the line segments and see how differently that reads. When you're doing, when you decide to AA on the outermost part of line segments, you can already see that you're using a lot less AA, and that's usually better. Like the less AA you have to do, the cleaner and like sharper it'll read. Um, and once we zoom out, you can already like see like this second a circle that we did reads like so much better than the second one. Um, Another thing to point out is I mentioned before that your diagonals, your 90-degree or 45-degree diagonals, and your horizontals and verticals will always be the lines that read the cleanest. Another reason why the second method of AA works better than the first one that I just did is because it preserves um, the lines, the 45-degree diagonals and the horizontals and vertical lines the best. Um, Here, it just doesn't do that as well, right? It doesn't. It's too complicated and it's a little bit messy. Of course, there's a time and place to AA like this, and sometimes it's just like it's a style choice. I know that I personally always like AA the crap out of everything. And maybe that's me just being a bad pixel artist, but I just like being able to just make everything super blurry, but don't. You want to try to make things look as cleanly as possible. Um, so sorry, I'm blanking out. Um, um, yeah, and sometimes because there are so many ways to AA the same objects, it takes a lot of trial and error. I know that I've had like line art where I just kind of like AA the same like thing over and over until it like looks right, and so just don't be afraid to kind of like take your time and AA on different layers and like toggle between like what option you think is the best. So just for like practice, let's just try AAing this like squiggle over here and see how we feel about it. I'm just going to be feeling this one out. I won't be like, sticking to a set rule. I won't be just AAing like the outermost edges. I'll just be, just seeing how things work. And yeah, let's see how it goes.